members of the governing body and staff are not in the same room. We are using an online meeting program called Zoom that allows for us to be in different places and participate as if we were all in the council chambers at City Hall. All of the requirements for the Kansas Open Meeting Act are still in effect during this online meeting. Attorney General Schmidt has provided guidelines to follow for remote meetings. We will make sure that all of those guidelines are being followed, even though we are attending the meeting remotely. Meeting rules for public comment. The Open Meeting Act, requires that we allow the public to observe the meeting. It does not require that the public be given an opportunity to participate in the meeting. However, it is our policy that we give the public opportunity to present comments to the council at the appropriate section of our meeting. Until such time as the technology allows verbal interaction during the meeting, we ask that members of the public wishing to address the City Council submit all questions or comments in writing a minimum of 24 hours in advance to the scheduled City Council meeting. Questions or comments will be read during the public forum section of the agenda. Questions or comments will only be read accompanied by the submitter's full name and address for entry into the permanent meeting record. Questions or comments, either positive or negative, must be formatted in a civil manner. And with that, we will now get started with the meeting. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the Kechi City Council meeting for April 9th. It is 3 minutes past 7 o'clock, and we are ready to call the meeting to order. And I would ask that our city clerk take roll, please.
You'll need to unmute.
Brian Adams.
Here.
Matt Brewer.
Here.
Richard Haddock.
Richard, I think you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm here.
So I think we need to have you count that you're present.
Did that work? Okay, we'll try it again. I'm here.
Okay.
Good to go.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, so we are.
Is that Margaret on the phone there?
Finally, yes, this is Margaret.
Okay, I've got to apologize. I did not recognize your telephone number right off the bat, so I'll get that recorded so we get you logged in sooner.
Okay.
Okay.
And just as that happened, my screen with my hold on just one moment. I am sorry. Okay, I am sorry. As we say, this is a work in progress. Okay, so the next item is for us to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would all please attempt to stand as if this works. Did this work? Were you able to share that photo?
I'm not seeing a flag right yet.
Okay, I've got the flag here.
Technology, we're getting through it. We
right.
can still say the pledge, though.
Okay, and oh, here it is. I'm sorry.
There.
Now do we have? Okay, I'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States
of America,
of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and justice for all. Okay, I don't know how that turned out, but
Mayor, I would like to note for the record that Betty Washington is now with us.
okay. And is she, don't see her on the screen. Is she sending audio only? Or is there video that I'm just,
If you hit the right arrow at the top where it shows the thumbnail of the pictures, she will be on there.
okay, I'm sorry, I now see Betty. I also see Taylor who's joined us. Okay. All right, very good. Next item is to approve the consent agenda. Council members, you've all had a chance to review that. And if so, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. And I need to have you identify who you are when you make a motion or second.
Betty,
This is Margaret.
Okay. Margaret, is that a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
This is Richard. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Margaret, second by Richard. And I'm gonna ask council members in alphabetical order for their vote on that. Councilman Adams,
Aye.
Councilman Brewer,
Aye.
and Councilwoman Washington.
aye.
Okay, that carries 5-0. Okay, next item is to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank
City
you, Mayor.
Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Robert Conger, your city administrator. The only change in the agenda this evening, you have listed as item number 5, an executive session. We can strike that from the record, and then the final item, recess, will be numbered number 5.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
This is Brian Adams. I make a motion, we approve the agenda with the removal of item 5, executive session.
Betty Washington, second.
It's a motion by Brian, a second by Betty. Councilman Brewer, your vote?
Aye.
Councilman Haddock,
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we have an agenda for this evening. Next item is communications. City Administrator, do we have any things that needed to be addressed that were submitted by the public?
I will turn that over to the clerk and let her report.
No, we did not have any public comment.
Okay, with that, we will go ahead and close out the public forum. Do we have anyone from civic groups or committees wishing to address the council this evening? Hearing none, we will move on. No old business to attend to. So we will move on to new business. And the first item for discussion, item A, Kechi Road and Oliver Street project. City Administrator Conger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the council will remember, the intersection project has been in the various planning stages since 2013. We got to the point we were able to apply for a grant for the street portion of the project. We were granted a $1.5 million grant for that project through WAMPO. That project was scheduled to be funded in fiscal year 21-21. However, we have been running into some delays and setbacks with regards to utilities. WAMPO has advised me that we can file what's called a TIP amendment. A TIP is a transportation improvement program, and our grant was approved and our project was approved through the Transportation Improvement Program. In order for us to change our deadline, we would have to submit this amendment. What we would be asking for in this amendment is to put off our deadline until fiscal year 2022. So we would have to essentially have a contract to begin on or before June 30th of 2022. This would allow us a little more breathing room with regards to relocation of utilities and acquisition of rights of way, which all of those will be necessary to be completed before the project can start. This essentially, we're just pushing this back 12 months. It's disappointing that we can't get this done sooner, but under the circumstances, I think to allow for a little more margin of planning and relocation of these utilities, it would be in the city's best interest. The challenge to that is if we choose not to relocate, or I'm sorry, if we choose not to proceed with the TIP amendment, moving it back a year, then we run the risk of losing our $1.5 million grant if we cannot begin the project on time. And as you will remember, 20% matching funds from the city are required for this project as well. But at this time, the city administrator recommends the city council petition WAMPO to approve a TIP amendment on Kechi's behalf, which would delay funding of the Kechi Road and Oliver intersection project for 12 months as part of KDOT's fiscal 2022 budget.
Do we have any questions? I'm seeing no questions. That being the case, I will call for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion. This is Brian Adams. I'll make a motion. We approve Bob's recommendation.
This is Margaret. I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Brian, second by Margaret. Councilman Brewer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Haddock
Yes.
and Councilwoman Washington.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion carries 5-0. Okay, and the next item, and again, my agenda has gone away, and
It's
what is the
Zoom
next?
technology.
Zoom technology. What is the next?
I don't have the agenda. You didn't forward the agenda to me.
What's the next item there, Bob? We will get that
The next
back up.
item, item B under new business is Zoom technology.
Okay, Zoom technology is our next topic. And City Administrator Conger, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give an update to the council on what has transpired and also maybe to enlighten those who may be watching as to what type of technology we have invested in at this time. Due to the COVID-19 event that's occurring right now, I went ahead and purchased roughly just under $4,000 worth of equipment to install in the city council chambers. We are still working at we've got it about 90% installed. Our public works crew did an amazing job of putting all the hardware in and getting it up and started. We're working through some software issues on the audio. We have everything working except the audio from the council chamber going out, and that's a very important component of that. And now that's one side of the Zoom technology. That's just the hardware. The hardware included, by the way, it included a processing computer, a camera. It included the necessary, let me see what else it included. We had several items on there. We had an audio interface, a mixer, and some other things that enabled us to get out. Now, the actual Zoom portion of the meetings that we're conducting under right now require membership. And just so that the council is aware, we are on a month-to-month basis with Zoom. The package that we signed up with is the most secure. And as everyone is aware, or will be, there's been a problem recently with security on the Zoom meetings with what's called Zoom bombing, or people crashing the meetings. This is a excuse me while I admit a few more people into the meeting. This is a subscription process, which we're allowed to have as many as 100 participants, and then we can have people from the general public who wish to watch this. Our package runs about $154 a month at this point. That includes our base membership, and we have a webinar function, a Zoom room, which controls the council chamber, and also cloud recording. We are recording this meeting, and at some point we hope to be able to stream this on YouTube live, so that we can share this with even more people that want to watch this without having to jump through the hoops of signing in through the Zoom portal. Are there any questions about what we have? Oh, one other thing too is our membership currently allows for one host. So what that means is, if we want to have other people who are or have hosting authority, we would have to buy individual memberships for them, monthly memberships. For instance, if the Planning Commission is going to meet, and they will at some point, we can certainly use, I can host that meeting, but in the event that I'm not there, we may need one or two other memberships as hosts, so that someone can coordinate these meetings and make sure that they're secure and not going to allow any folks in that might be disruptive. So just so the council knows, we're now there is discounts through Zoom if you subscribe for a year. I didn't do the calculation, but it appears to be about a 10 to 15% discount for an annual sign up and payment. Are there any questions about where we're at right now? And we're all figuring this out, and I think everybody's done quite well. Well, if there are no questions, I'll yield the floor back to Mayor Spear.
Thank you, City Administrator Conger. Okay, our next item is item C, city procedures as related to the COVID-19 events. Again, back to Administrator Conger.
Thank you, Mayor. Robert Conger, your city administrator. We have, as the council knows, we've been in communication with many council members, but for those who are watching, we really should, this would be a good time to get everybody apprised of the information and the measures that have been taken by all of our departments up to this point during the COVID event. We have made several adjustments here at the city, the Zoom equipment being one of them. It's critical to us being able to conduct open meetings under the Kansas Open Meetings Act. So at this point, I'm going to yield the floor over to our staff members and let them share a little bit about what's transpired since we began undergoing some changes. So I'm gonna turn the floor over to our Public Works Director, Thomas Bevan, first, and let him address the things that they've been up to and how they've been meeting the governor's criteria of social distancing. Mr. Bevan.
Thanks, Bob. Everybody can hear me, right? Mayor,
Yes.
council members. Thomas Bevan, Public Works Director. At first, early March, we started off, we were rotating shifts of 3 guys, 1 week on, 1 week off. As we've gotten closer to April and the growing season, we have since stopped that. We are all reporting now every day. The good thing about being in Public Works is I can separate them guys so they can maintain their distances and not have to work together. So we're fortunate in that. We just have so many city functions going on right now and have so much stuff to do that sending them home and only having half staff after already being short is not really feasible. So what I decided to do is to bring them all in and try to quarantine them off to their section of town. So that's kind of how we're running right now. I kind of gave you a list of what we did in March, and to my surprise, we got more done than I anticipated. Once I started jotting things down, I thought, wow, we actually did pretty good for, swapping off from week to week. So that's kind of how Public Works is going, and that's how I foresee it to continue over the next couple of months. Pretty much that's it for me and my report. So.
Okay, thank you. Chief Woodrow, would you mind sharing what changes and what adaptations you've been undergoing in the with our police department?
Yes, thank you, Bob. Chief Woodrow here, Mayor and Council. I sent a pretty lengthy report through email of the modified procedures that we're going through, so I won't touch on all of those. Key things is the police department's running as it would any other day, still responding to emergencies, 911 calls, doing what we should every day. The main modifications are we're trying to do as many calls as we can over the phone to not interact with too many members of the community or go on to medical calls. Those are the main things that we're steering clear from, unless requested. As mentioned in my report, all unintended deaths and welfare checks will be responded to donning the KDHE recommended personal protective equipment. On my list, I mentioned if we didn't have that equipment, that we would request assistance from an outside agency. At this point, as of yesterday, we have all of the equipment that we would need to respond to a call like that. So I am still seeking a thermometer. They're really hard to come by right now. So that has not been implemented yet, just to maintain and make sure that, each officer's temperature is below 100 before they come into the building. We are not in the building. I mean, we all work separate shifts, and then when Lieutenant Trumbull and I are in the building together, we're well within outside of our 6 feet. Everything else is current. Most important thing that most of you have asked is about the personal protective equipment and how we were doing on that. And I feel at this point, I know the peak is to come in 2 to 3 weeks, but right now I'm confident in the equipment that we have. Thomas has helped a lot with the cleaning supplies, and we've all worked together, and so I think that's been a really great thing. I'll take any questions if you guys have any at this time.
Thank you, Chief. And again, I can't thank our Public Works Director enough. When everything was flying off the shelves, he was able to find a distributor who was able to provide some cleaning and sanitizing supplies that we were able to utilize here at the city. So he's kept us safe, and we're spraying everything down here on a regular basis. So again, my hat's off to him. We're going to move on to our finance director, Cami Schroff.
Mayor, council members, this is Cami Schroff, your finance director. Some of the changes that we've implemented in the front office for the administrative functions is that, as you know, City Hall is currently locked to all outside visitors, but we are still answering phone calls. And we will have citizens in if they make an appointment with us as well. I have my staff working rotating schedules. It really depends on what their work scope is for the week. But we have one person up in the front office every day to ensure that we're still answering the phones and still available if someone needs to schedule an appointment here at City Hall. Some of the other things we've done, everybody has remote access. So when they are on their rotation where they're not in the office, we're all able to work from home. I can say it's working really well. Everyone's, pitching in and picking up the slack, I would say, around the whole city. Honestly, have really come together and worked as a team to make sure that the functions and our tasks are still getting completed. There are some times where my staff still needs to be in the office at the same time. So everyone's getting their PPE from, our police chief has come over and brought masks. Public Works has given us gloves. So we're able to utilize that PPE if we have to be in close proximity to each other. Also, when we receive mail and checks and different things in the Dropbox, the police department's actually picking those up for us now. And then we're allowing them to sit for 24 hours before the staff starts to process those to hopefully try and kill any sort of virus that's on any of our mail. When they are opening the mail, they're wearing gloves, they're disinfecting their workspaces and sometimes trying to disinfect some of the mail. So, we're just taking as many precautions as we can, and we're staying flexible to whatever, comes from this changing environment right now. So.
Thank you, Ms. Schroff. Did anyone have any questions for our finance director? I would like to commend our senior staff for doing an amazing job. We've got a great team put together here. We have been having multiple meetings, mostly by Zoom, and looking at our budget for this year. A couple of the things that we've been doing is attending a lot of conference calls and Zoom meetings with various agencies. I've been listening in on the League of Kansas Municipalities meetings, so I'm sure some of you have. We've been following those to see what's around the next corner, and it changes literally by the hour. There have been several executive orders handed down. There have been several federal bills that have come through, and we're all without much guidance, I might add. And so we're all still trying to figure this out. We're trying to get directives on how funds will be applied. This is an unusually difficult time for a lot of people. And I can't emphasize enough that it appears that the curve is starting to flatten out, but still, I think we need to remain vigilant. We need to continue and not let our guard down as we look forward and listen to our experts and the advice that we get from them. We are looking through our budget right now for 2020. The league has projected shortfall, and our best guess estimate is that the city is going to experience a shortfall in revenue also. And as a result, we are looking over items that we can definitely cut, but also items that we might put off till later in the year until we get a better picture of how these larger expenditures, whether or not we can afford those. So we intend to bring a more comprehensive list, a prioritized list, in fact, to the council that they can look at and examine and see what our recommendations are in identified areas that we can hold off making expenditures unless the funds are there for us to do that. We want to hold a workshop on looking at my calendar, April the 23rd at 6 p.m. And that's the reason for the recess that we've requested in the agenda. So given all of the changes that have come about, I'm going to put our city attorney on the spot and have him weigh in a little bit on some of the key major changes legally that we're looking at. And as I say, it changes by the hour, it seems. So I'm going to let him weigh in and give us a brief update of the legal implications of many of the orders that have been passed.
Thank you, Bob. And I also want to commend Bob for the thorough way that he has gone about this process. There's been a lot of changes over the course of the past month, and he has really, I think, gone above and beyond to address all of those issues, get all this technology in place to be sure that we can still have our meetings and comply with the law. And so I would just wanted to start off with that. Yeah, certainly things are changing by the minute, by the hour. But as you all probably have followed, there are certain executive orders that are currently in place and currently the law with respect to Kansas. So what we first saw a few weeks ago were, of course, the individual counties putting in their orders about social distancing and groups of people and that sort of thing. And then, about a week ago or so, the governor passed an executive order, a couple of executive orders that kind of work together. The first being the general ban on gatherings of more 10 or more. Of course, there are several exceptions to that, but there are actually not as many as you might think. For most purposes, any gathering of 10 or more is probably in violation of that executive order. The most recent executive order then would be the one that is commonly referred to as the stay-at-home order. And that is the one that's directing anyone to stay at home unless they're going about an essential business. Now, there are many more exceptions as for what constitutes an essential business. Of course, municipal government activities constitute essential business, as well as going to the grocery store and some of those necessary things for daily life. There's been a lot of talk about how those all work together. The state's orders supersede most of the county and city orders that came before them. And so if you're looking at this issue, you can pretty much rely on just those statewide orders right now. Of course, you hear all the things coming out of Washington. There's all kinds of aid packages being passed. There are talk now, I mean, that doesn't really affect the city proper very much, but it has been talk just in the past couple of days about potential relief coming for local governments. And so we don't know what the form of that looks like. Maybe some kind of loan, not quite sure yet. So as those things progress, I'll keep an eye on it. Of course, report to Bob and Cammie and anybody else that might be interested in those things as they come about, see if there's anything that's worth looking into for the city. Does anybody have any other questions about kind of the legal side of things? Okay, well, I'm always open for any of the city council members or any of the staff to give me a call if something does come up. So feel free to contact me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kovar. Are there any questions from the mayor or the council members regarding any of the actions or measures that have been implemented so far, and anything we might be able to clarify or clear up that is maybe not we haven't covered fully? Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your support. I don't mind telling you that everybody here has been under a lot of stress. We have acknowledged that among ourselves. that we are going to go through some stressful times, just like everybody else is. And we've allowed ourselves to be a little more understanding and be patient with each other. And I think together our team is doing a magnificent job, and I can't thank them enough. Mayor, I'll turn this back over to you unless there's any questions for me.
Okay,
thank you.
let's move on to item D, budgeted employee compensation. Again, back to our city administrator, Bob Conger.
Thank you, Mayor. What I'm putting before the council tonight, it seems like an odd request at a time when many people are suffering. Many people have been laid off or furloughed. They have been, some have lost their jobs completely. What was budgeted in our salaries for 2020 was a 2% merit increase or a performance increase for each of the employees. That was built into our budget from last year. I want you to be, I want to be absolutely clear that what I'm proposing is that we move forward with the planned performance increases, and for a few reasons, and please bear with me. We are not insensitive to those people who are in great need right now. It's very sad and unfortunate, and we would give anything that we had all of our friends available, our businesses, our favorite places that we could go and socialize and meet with everybody. But we understand too that people are in dire need right now. The challenge that we have before us right now is governmental entities of all types can't shut down like some businesses can, even though they're hurt badly in doing so. There's still water needs to come out of the tap, gas needs to be provided, law enforcement needs to be there, public safety is critical. We don't have the option to shut down and lay off. We have our employees have done a great job of adapting to these changes and some of the adjustments they've had to make. This is a time where we are putting our people on the line, just like many other public workers, and really requiring them to work. We need them to work, and I think at this point in time, as harsh as it may sound and cold as it may sound, I believe that we've asked our employees to perform to a certain level of expectation under the most extreme circumstances, and I can't think of a more critical situation we can put them in than putting them at risk in doing the jobs that they do every day here now with the city. Even though we're taking all the necessary precautions, I applaud their determination and their commitment. And for that reason, I'm advocating for this 2% increase. Just to give you a sense of the numbers involved, we actually have a net savings due to some longer tenured employees who retired last year. So we, even after the 2% increase, the city will still realize a savings in the salaries that were originally budgeted for 2020. So in recognition of their hard work and efforts, again, I'm recommending to the council that we move ahead and proceed with this 2% performance increase for our employees. That does not include the governing body members or the city administrator. And so with those comments, I'll turn it over to the mayor and anyone that might have questions or comments.
Thank you, Bob. Council members, anyone want to chime in on this particular issue? I would like to say that I think one of the things and I think our staff has done an exemplary job during this crisis. And I think that one of the things that we may want to look ahead is that I think this would be a good idea to do this for a couple of reasons. I think that as we get farther into the year, we are probably going to have to do more with less. And I think this is somewhat of a vote of confidence to our staff for them to recognize that as we move forward and as budgets get tighter, that we're all kind of in this together, and there may be some things that they get called on to do that they'll remember that we were there when City Administrator Conger said this was a good idea. And I mean I've spent time with all of our staff people, and I think they're the kind of people that they're ready to do whatever needs to be done. That's my comments. If there's no well, Councilman Adams did.
Oh, I was going to speak up. I wanted you to be able to finish your sentence. These comments have nothing to do with deserving or undeserving. I don't doubt. I appreciate Bob's words. 100%. But we got to keep in mind that we have no idea where our budget's going to land now. We're surely going to be short sales tax revenue. We're surely going to be covering delinquent utilities. We're surely going to be covering delinquent property taxes next year. To what amount, none of us know. And we have, what's the number I looked up today? Just between our two largest employers in the area, 10,000 people that are either in furlough or in laid off status. As of this week, 17 million within the United States laid off, getting no income except unemployment. We're not looking at furloughs. We're not looking at wage reductions. We're certainly not looking at layoffs. But as a shared sacrifice, knowing where we stand, I think we should be in pure conservation mode of all the money we can, or we're going to be looking next year at raising taxes to cover what we're doing today to citizens that are going to be making less next year than they made this year. That all seems to compound to me to suggest that at least we need to wait on this for maybe 3 months and revisit it. I would like to offer that idea.
Other council people want to comment? So,
You're suggesting this is Margaret. You're suggesting, Brian, that we delay several months the 2% increase.
That's correct.
Okay.
Until we know more
I just
what's
wanted
going on.
Right.
Now, this is Betty. Now, if we delay that 2% increase, will they get pay when we do give them the increase?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that question, Ms. Washington?
I said if we delay 3 months or so, would they be able to get that back pay?
I suppose that would depend on how we worded the increase at the time, whether it be retroactive or just immediately active.
I would concur with that. That I would suggest that we make it retroactive if approved.
But we wouldn't have to make that decision now. Is that correct? This is Margaret.
Well, actually, the raise was built into the budget to take effect April 1st. We have held that for now. In fact, it was set to go into effect automatically. We thought it was an important enough issue under the circumstances to bring to the council for discussion, whether to move forward with it and make it retroactive to April 1st now, or some other alternative if the council wants to consider an additional alternative.
Councilman Haddock or Councilman Brewer, do you have any comments?
I was going to ask what Margaret and Betty asked as well about it being retroactive if we decide to delay it. I think that that's really an important consideration because there's so much that we don't know about the future in the weeks ahead. Yeah, my question was answered on that.
Councilman Haddock?
So if we don't do anything, the raises go ahead and happen. Is that right, Bob?
Well, we have placed a moratorium on them for now, pending council action. So if, the council has a few options. They can choose not to enact it right now and then reserve the option to take action at a later date or not to take action at a later date. Or the council can take some action at this point that commits to a decision at a future date. Or the council may reject the suggestion altogether.
Okay.
And I would entertain a motion from any council person.
Brian, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We delay increases until for 90 days. Or I guess till the first meeting, and what would that be? July.
I'm sorry, excuse me, that just, if you want to put the date in there, it's July 9th is the first meeting in July.
Make that date July 9th in that motion.
This is Andrew Kovar, City Attorney. Brian, for clarification, when you say delay, do you mean, I believe you mean delay the determination and you'd like the question to come back in front of the City Council, not delay and raises take effect in 90 days. Am I correct?
Yeah, delay the decision and reconsider at that time.
Thank you.
I second that. This is Margaret. I would second that motion.
And then I have a question about the motion. Can I ask a question?
First of all, I've got a motion on the table by Brian, a second by Margaret. And at this point, I'll entertain any further discussion.
So if we delay it 90 days, the decision, at that point, we could determine whether or not it would be retroactive and go back and pay them for the previous 90 days?
That is correct. That is correct. Any decision, if you're just delaying the decision, then you can take any action at that point that you deem appropriate.
Okay. I just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
So
Okay.
This is Betty, Washington. So if the 90 days, if we decide, do we have a choice of giving them a raise or not? Or what after the 90 days, if we decide that we don't think we can afford to give them that 2% raise? Could we do that?
At that point, Ms. Washington, then the council could make a decision to not give the raise indefinitely or to reconsider at another date.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the table right now by Councilman Adams and a second by Margaret to delay the decision of the budget employee compensation until July 9th. I'm going to go ahead and take a vote here. Councilman Brewer?
I agree.
Councilman Haddock?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Washington?
Yes.
Okay, so we will delay that decision until July 9th. Okay. That's all of our regular business. I did want to share one thing. I've been able to visit with most council people, and it's in regards to a project, an initiative I'm calling Fire Hydrant Art. We've talked about it off and on. This is a program that's been done over in Valley Center for many years, and we've got a lot of fire hydrants that need to be painted. We have talked with the Public Works, with our city administrator. We've got the approval from the Sedgwick County Fire Chief, Doug Williams, to paint our fire hydrants under some guidelines with some art. And I want to share with you a couple of them that we had some citizens complete today. We're in the process of meeting with Curtis Czar and the Arts Council are going to talk about this on Monday evening to have them involved. Here's an example of one of our residents over in Prairie Creek that was working on this hydrant today. I'll show you another. Were you able to see that
Yes.
picture? Okay. Here's another one.
I can't see it, but that's okay.
Okay. This is another one that was completed today. This project wouldn't be an impact to our budget because we would already buy paint to paint the fire hydrants. Sherwin-Williams is so impressed with the program that they're actually offering us paint at 50% of the price. So it's actually cheaper than we would normally get our safety red or our safety yellow paint. The citizens who adopt a fire hydrant would basically paint them. This would keep our social distancing in place. I did have a resident earlier this evening that said that they didn't have any painting skills, but they would like to donate some money towards buying some of the paint to help out on the project. A little bit of a Tom Sawyer project here. This is one of the things that will keep our Public Works department from having to spend time working on this project. I've advised Bob that this is something that I will assume the overall administration of getting that done. And after we meet with the Arts Council, we will have a document that will open it up to all of our residents that would be able to participate in this. And there's guidelines, things, for instance, like you can't put if a fire hydrant is in your yard, somebody can't adopt it with it and put art on there that they don't approve of. Everything has to be family friendly. Every art has to be approved before it's done. And I would encourage all of you to Google fire hydrant art, and you can see that there are literally hundreds of these that have been done around the country. Valley Center has been doing this for more than 3 years, and they have given us their documentation. We're using that as the basis for setting up our particular plan. And I just wanted to have, I asked Bob that we don't need to have a motion for this, but I just wanted to at least have I guess maybe the blessing of the council or comments.
I think it's a good idea. I like it.
I'm trying to think of where fire hydrants are in town.
I think it's a great opportunity to promote community in Kechi at a time when people need something to smile about, be happy about. I think it's a great thing for the community.
I would like to issue a challenge, if I may. I will donate the necessary paint and materials for anyone in town who wants to paint a hydrant with the Wichita State University theme. They can put Woo Shock on it or whatever they want to do with it. I'll leave it up to them. And so I'm throwing down that challenge to anyone else on the council who has a favorite alma mater who might want to try to match that as well. And we can let those pop up all over town.
Okay, city administrator, you've agreed to pay $30 plus tax.
Got it.
Would that violate, using somebody's logo without their permission? Would we have to get their permission?
I'll defer to legal counsel on this. I think technically we might be running a tightrope, but I don't know if original art really counts.
We'll address that offline.
Okay, very good. We'll talk that. Maybe we can hold off on the challenge for now, but if anyone wants to do another favorite alma mater, we'll put that on hold until we get the go ahead.
And there is one thing in regards to that the amount of black paint that's used on a fire hydrant has to be limited. So we could do black and gold, but it would have to be more gold than black. That's part of the
right.
We
wouldn't want more than 50% of the hydrant painted black, and if there is black used on it, and I'm speaking from experience, we would prefer that the contrasting color be really bright and vibrant.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to assume that.
I have a couple of questions. Just would like to have something clarified for me, if that has nothing to do with the fire hydrants.
Okay.
For the city administrator, in the email that you sent to all of us, and I won't go into the details specifically of what's in the email, because you said you'd rather it wasn't brought up in a meeting, but you said, and I quote, "If brought up in an open meeting, the topic could put other council members under pressure to act." I don't quite understand that. Would you clarify that?
Well, that's true of any item that's brought up by any council member unannounced, unless it's on the agenda. Any subject or matter that's brought up in an open meeting could put a council member on the spot to act either affirmatively or negatively or not at all.
Or suggest it be tabled?
I'm sorry?
I guess they could suggest it be tabled. I don't know whether, I don't have any problem, with topics coming up. If I don't feel like I have enough information to act, it's not a problem for me. I would delay the, voting on it.
Right.
But I just didn't quite understand. I felt like kind of insulted by it.
Well, there was no intent to disrespect anyone. In fact, quite the opposite. For any topic that's brought up, I think it's just common courtesy for someone to, if they're going to bring something up in a meeting, to share that ahead of time so that council members can be prepared to answer that with enough information that they can render a decision.
Well, you also did say that if there was a consensus to waive this, that you would have it put on the agenda. How do we define a consensus? You wanted us to meet with you basically one-on-one to determine if there was a consensus?
That is correct. Before, there are several things before I put it on the agenda I mean, there are regular mundane items that we put on the agenda, and just for informational purposes of the process, if there is something coming up that I have some question as to whether or not it's going to be contentious or whether it's going to make someone uncomfortable, I at least like to run that past all the council members as much as possible to get them to weigh in to determine whether or not it's a viable agenda item. The last thing I want to do in a meeting is, number one, cause anyone any embarrassment or put them on the spot. But sometimes you have to do that to make a decision and take a stand. I think every council member has their own constitution and being able to make those decisions. But
So
again,
how do you determine if there's a consensus?
well, again, I go to each council member in briefings and discussions and pose the question in such a manner without seeking a vote, because that's improper and illegal under the Open Meetings Act. But I try to gauge support or lack of support for any particular given item without asking directly and getting an opinion. And I don't share that with other council members just for that reason.
So how do you determine if an individual, if you have their consensus or not? I mean, it sounds like it might be, a little difficult in some cases to determine that.
Well, it is in fact difficult at times to determine. And if there seems to be support for an item, we'll bring it up, or even at the request of the council member. Even if there is lack of support for an item, but they want it on the agenda, we will place it on the agenda. So it's not like we're vetting every item that comes up on the agenda. Otherwise, meetings would take forever.
So then a consensus would be like 3 out of the 5, or what would you consider to be a consensus?
A consensus in my mind is a general idea of how the majority is going to vote.
Okay.
All right, any other items that we need?
And if I may clarify, and again, this is a common practice to ensure that meetings run smoothly and not to put things on the agenda that are going to waste the council members' time. We don't do polling. We don't take a head count or a straw poll. All of those things are improper and not an open way to conduct transparent government.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the council before we recess? And just to make sure, we are recessing until the 23rd. Is that correct?
That is the 23rd at 6 p.m.
Okay, that's for a workshop.
For
correct?
budget work.
And what will the workshop be?
2020 budget workshop to review cuts or delays in 2020 expenditures.
Okay.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion at this point for us to recess until 6 p.m. on April 23rd.
So moved, Betty Washington.
A second?
I'll second.
For the record, who was that second?
Brian.
Sorry, that was Brian. Brian Adams.
All right, we have a motion by Betty, a second by Brian to recess until 6 p.m. on April 23rd. Councilman Brewer, how do you vote?
Yay.
Councilman Haddock
Yes.
and Councilwoman McCormick.
Yes.
Okay, so that carries 5-0. I want to thank everyone for attending. I think for the most part, this was a fairly smooth meeting, and appreciate all of your help and City Administrator Conger, since you are controlling this meeting, anything we need to do before we leave the meeting?
No, sir.
Who would be,
Now that we're in recess, I can stop this at any time, and we probably should, because now we're outside the open meeting.
who would be the person there that could help me understand why I cannot get into these meetings other than by phoning in? Who has the expertise?
Ms. McCormick, I would be happy to help you with that. If we
Okay,
can
great.
connect outside the meeting.
Sure.
And
Yeah, I don't want to do it now.
Everyone is free to leave at this point.
Okay.
If everybody has questions, you can stay here. I'd be open if there's any questions that are off the agenda.
We
Actually,
cannot continue at this point.
No,
I'm ending the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.